Well, hello there and a warm welcome to June 2021 as we go into summer, approaching the solstice. Now, one of the big problems we have at this time of year, of course, is that there's not really all that much night time to do observing of the night sky, on the grounds that it doesn't get dark until about 11:30 and it starts getting light again sometime after 2 o'clock. So the actual local midnight is about 1:24 where I am on the eastern side of Northern Ireland. So one of the things we can look at that's still bright enough to see is the moon, of course. And we start off on the first with the last quarter moon, and that's going through to a thinning crescent, being new on the 10th. And actually, the new moon on the 10th we will see brings us a partial solar eclipse. So that's well worth looking out for. Then we're through to first quarter on the 18th of June and a full moon on the 24th. Then sort of as the moon goes into the waning gibbous phase towards the end of the month on the 30th. Summer solstice this year is on the 21st of June. It can be the 20th. But the actual instant in time at which the moon is the highest point above the equator that it ever gets to, it's 0432 British Summer Time on the 21st of June. So that is the summer. The meteorologists, of course, will tell you that the 1st of June is the start of summer, but that's just a convenience thing. It has no astronomical significance at all. Now, we've just missed a total lunar eclipse that wasn't visible on this side of the Earth. It was during our daytime, so we don't see those. But here's a picture that I managed to get from a webcam in Bendigo, Victoria in Australia. That was the 26th of May, and it was not visible here. But it was. Now, you hear this word a lot, and it's slightly controversial. It was a supermoon. And this means really a moon just that's a little bit larger than average, by virtue of the fact that the moon's orbit is elliptical, and therefore sometimes it's closer to the Earth, sometimes a bit further away. And this has a little bit of a consequence for June, as we'll see in just a moment. Now then, on the 10th of June, the morning of the 10th of June, we have that partial solar eclipse. And because the lunar eclipse was a supermoon, the corollary of that is that when we come halfway around the moon's orbit to the solar eclipse, the moon is actually at its smallest, and it is not big enough to completely cover the sun. So in the areas of totality in northern Canada and Greenland, they will get not a total solar eclipse, they will get an annular solar eclipse where there's still a ring of sun around the moon. Not so interesting because you don't get to see any of the sun's atmosphere, the corona, or any of the prominences or anything like that. You can see the prominences if you look through a hydrogen alpha scope, but in normal light you don't see them. So that's the eclipse. 11:11 on the morning of the 10th of June. And some of us will be in locations. I will be going up to the Dark Sky Observatory, I think. That's the current plan. And setting up a safe telescope there for people to look at. Do not look at this unless you know exactly what you're doing. And frankly, the way to do that is to be with an expert when you're doing it. Someone who's done it before and knows the ropes of solar filtering and so on. So that's the partial solar eclipse. Now then, something else worth looking out for on the moon. You can see this some months, not every month. The lunar X and the lunar V. These are two just slight sort of phenomena where the actual way the light is cast onto the moon's terminator here just gives the impression of two letters simultaneously, X and V there. And that happens this month on the 17th of June between midday and about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a daytime moon, so you can see the moon at that time, but it is, of course, in daylight. And next time, 16th of July, around 11 p.m., where the moon is setting. It's still slightly light at that time, not completely dark. So that's the lunar X and lunar V. Right, the planets in June. They're sort of spread out between the evening and the morning a bit. Jupiter is visible in the southeast in the early morning, about 3 o'clock in the morning. Likewise, Saturn. We'll have a look at those two in a moment. Mars is low in the west, setting after Venus. beginning to lose Mars a bit to the twilight now. Venus is visible after sunset, but it's quite low, quite difficult to see. Mercury we did get a bit of towards the end of May, but really we're losing that very much to the twilight in June. And in fact, it's headed round the other side of the sun again. Uranus is not quite visible yet. Superior conjunction was on the 30th of April, and it's not quite far enough away from the sun to get a good handle on it. But Neptune has come a bit further away from the sun. Its superior conjunction was the 13th of March, and you can now see Neptune in the early hours of the morning, about 3:30, 4 o'clock. Looking more closely at Jupiter and Saturn, Jupiter is in Aquarius there. This is looking at 4 a.m. on the 11th of June. I've just picked that date because there's no moon at that time. That's when the moon is new. And you can see Jupiter, and adjacent to it, a few degrees away, is Saturn. Look a bit more closely at Jupiter at that time, and we can see we've got the equatorial bands. We've got the Great Red Spot there, which is a storm that's been raging for at least 300 years. And Ganymede, Europa, Io, and Callisto. So the classic two either side Galilean moon configuration there. And looking again at Saturn more closely, Saturn's moon Titan is 8th magnitude and fairly easily to see in a telescope. If you've got a camera on it and sort of overexposed Saturn quite a bit, you can get some other moons. Here's Iaptus Rhea, Dione Tethys, Enceladus, and a couple of others there that you can get. They are down at about 11th and 12th magnitude, so they're not that easy to actually visually see. So that's Saturn. Venus is very much in the twilight. This is 10 o'clock on the 10th in the evening, and there's Venus. Now Venus at the moment is showing no real phase at all because it is almost fully illuminated, being on the other side of the sun. But as it comes towards us, which is over the next sort of 6 or 7 months, then it will go through this. I took these last year. Between the 30th of March and the 13th of May, that you get a half phase, and then Venus, unlike the moon, as the phase gets thinner, it actually gets visually bigger, to the point where at the end of it it's about 1 arc minute there, which is about the smallest that people can see. People with keen eyesight can see that crescent. Jess, I never can. My wife always does, and I do ask her which direction it's facing, and she always gets it right. So that's Venus. Now we'll have a look at the deep sky. Okay, so here we are looking up towards the northwest, and we're going to start off with finding north and a quick look at the Plough and Ursa Major. And we see actually that here is the Plough, the 3 stars of the Handle and then the 4 of the Dipper there. And you actually see here that Ursa Major, which is sort of sometimes used a bit interchangeably with the name the Plough, there's a bit more to Ursa Major, including the front paws and head of the bear here, whereas the Big Dipper or Plough, I like the American name Big Dipper actually, is just 7 stars of the total there. So that's that. Now we'll move in a bit closer here, and we can see there's 7 stars in this. And I'm just before we go and find north, I'm just going to focus on one of them, which is Mizar. Now Mizar is a wonderful star. If you look at it, it is a naked eye double. It is Mizar and its neighbouring star Alcor are actually gravitationally related. They're not just in the same direction. And it's a great test of eyesight without you actually having to drive to Barnard Castle, if you can separate Mizar and Alcor with the naked eye. Of course, then what you do then is if you get a modest telescope, I've seen this through a 4-inch Maksutov Cassegrain, but you can look at Mizar and find that Mizar itself also is a double star. There we are. That's the 2 main components of Mizar. So that's Mizar. Free eyesight test in the sky, if you can separate those 2, Mizar and Alcor. Now then, coming down, we look at Merak and Dubhe in the Dipper here, these 2. They are the pointers, and what we do is we take these 2 stars and then we replicate that distance approximately 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we come to a bright star there, which is Polaris. And Polaris is the North Star. It is not, as some commonly say, the brightest star in the sky, but it is of second magnitude, so it's quite significant, quite obvious, and it is almost but not quite at the North Celestial Pole. So that the direction of Polaris is approximately, as near as makes no difference for most purposes, the north. So how different is it? Well, I can show you that here actually if I project a grid onto here. Now then, the confluence of all these points here is the North Celestial Pole, and you see that Polaris actually is a little bit off it. In fact, it's about 3/4 of a degree off it. If you're looking to find north, that's usually good enough. If you're aligning an equatorial mount, it's not quite good enough for long exposures. So what you do is there's a convenient helper star here actually. You line up your mount to Polaris and then move it 3/4 of a degree in the direction of Kochab. That's Beta Ursa Minoris, the second brightest star in Ursa Minor, slightly orange star. If you go 3/4 of a degree in that direction, then your alignment will be a lot more accurate. So that's a neat little trick for polar alignment. Now then, other things in the sky. At this point, we move over towards the east, and we have 3 very bright first magnitude stars coming up above the horizon, Deneb, Vega, and Altair. And these 3 stars are all the brightest in their respective constellations. That's Alpha Cygni is Deneb, Alpha Lyrae is Vega, and Alpha Aquila is Altair. And Sir Patrick Moore christened that the summer triangle. It is prominent throughout the summer months, and actually indeed very good in the early evening right through to November and December. So that's well worth a look there. We'll just have a look at a couple of things. If we sort of zoom in a bit on Vega for a start, we'll go to Vega. One of the things you can see quite well during the summer months is double stars. You don't need a really dark sky, and there's a particularly good one here. This is called Epsilon Lyra, and it's called the Double Double. I think we'll see why. We'll zoom in on that, and we can see, yeah, double star, nice double star, easily seen in a small telescope. But if you go a bit further, and again I've seen this in a 4-inch Maksutov Cassegrain, you'll find that each of the doubles, there we are, that's double. And we come back out again and we find that the other double here is also double. So there, that's Epsilon Lyra, the double double. Okay, and one other thing we're going to look at while we're here, just to finish off our little mini tour of the deep sky, Beta Cygni. It's well worth a look. Beautiful star. It's right on the end of, if you start with Deneb there and go down the lines of the Cygnus, the Swan there, you'll come to Albireo and zoom in on Albireo, and you will find that also is a double star. It's a beautiful double star because the 3rd magnitude bright component is a beautiful gold colour, and the other component is a wonderful sapphire blue, and the colour contrast in a nice refractor telescope or a Maksutov Cassegrain is very beautiful and well worth looking at. So that's a quick tour of the deep sky. Now then, one other thing that's well worth looking out for, particularly as we are at a very good latitude to see this phenomenon, is noctilucent clouds, and it's actually a consequence of the fact that it doesn't quite get dark during the middle of summer here. Here's us observing here, and here's these clouds. These clouds are very, very high, mesospheric clouds they're called. They're right on the edge of space, approximately 55 miles or 90 kilometers high, and they're sort of made of sort of ice particles and so on. They are so high that with the sun just sort of down there about only 6 degrees or so below the horizon, they are illuminated by the sun even though we are not in sunlight ourselves. And this is actually one I took from Scotland a couple of years ago, but there's a whole sequence of them. They come round really between the beginning of June or the end of May and the beginning of August. I think 4th of August is the latest I've ever seen them. And they make a very great animation as well. You have to capture the movement in them. This is a still photo of one that this is July the 1st, 2017, from my house in London. Look at the various shapes you get in it, sort of waves and loops and curls here. So there's a lot going on there. This is an animation I made over a period of time. Let's have a look at that. There we are. So noctilucent clouds, well worth looking out for. So that's all I have to say for the moment. Apart from stay safe, keep looking up, and thanks for watching.